It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
If this episode sounds better, yeah, it's courtesy of Dustin. This guy came in and I was like, it should be a prerequisite that guys know how to set up audio equipment.
Yeah. The hell? You definitely need could have used that on episode 1, but it's all right.
Yeah,
actually, episode 1 of like having the soundboard.
Yeah,
right?
Well, you have a music background, right?
Music background, podcast background, yeah.
So, like, when you're recording all your stuff, like, did you knew just how to set it up and what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I started recording back in, like, the tape days, like, back in the, like, reels and stuff like that. And then when I was learning how to record, that's when, like, the digital revolution was coming through and all the boards like that started happening. And,
Did you say reels?
Yeah.
I need to explain what you're talking about with reels, because every single kid that listens to this podcast is going to be like, reels, yeah, I know what reels are. yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. No, not those kind of reels.
That's fair. Like the old theaters that had the like tape reel that goes from one tape reel to another tape reel. That's what people used to record on. And it was like one go. That's all you had. There wasn't really much re-recording on it at all. And
so Dustin's been doing the recording thing for a long time. Not just since Instagram Reels.
For a long time. Not since
This is like the first, do you feel this way, Paul? This is the first year in here I feel like I'm losing some connect to kids and to what they're into and to how they speak.
A little bit, yeah. Definitely.
This is the first year where I feel like I have to work a little bit to like click in, especially with the younger kids that we have, 7th, 8th grade, early in high school.
How old are you guys?
32.
33.
32. Oh, jeez.
I luck out because, like, for me, I still am very much into, like, watching sports. So if I feel like I'm out of the loop with something, I'll just divert to sports, like, instantly. Whereas, like, Mike doesn't watch sports that often. Somebody will ask him somebody on the Yankees, and he's like, Derek Jeter? Sure. Aaron Judge? Yeah.
Yeah, no. I can't do sports either.
It's fair.
Unless it's like MMA. I still get into that a little bit.
Well, people punching their faces and it's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Did you watch this weekend's fight?
No, I watched. I was busy, but I did watch the results and some of the clips from the fights. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good fight.
Yeah. No, you're saying this morning, there's people it's easy to connect with. We have, dude, a lot of the crowd that was around when you were in here.
Yeah.
They're still around. Like that, we were saying
so
that
cool.
Evening crowd. Like Paul said this morning, like, yeah, the one girl was in here when you were in here however many years ago.
She's the OG.
Yeah, shout out to her. Yeah, it's crazy. I remember, you were here then. You were like, we did a soft opening or like a free work. Paul was here working out and you were here working out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You were here too.
It pops up
Holy
on my
shit.
Facebook memories every single year, and you're definitely in the background of one of the pictures that I'm in.
That's crazy. You both were here.
Yeah, and I'm not in the picture. One of the pictures, Mike is coaching me on chin-ups. And then in another picture,
coaching you on trap bar.
Yeah,
in another picture, he's coaching you on trap bar. And then another picture, I'm helping somebody because I was a trainer, but I just didn't work here at the time. He's like, hey, can you just help them with that? And I was like, yeah, I got it. And it was just like a one-arm dumbbell bench press. But there's a picture of me literally like helping somebody. And I was like, I didn't work here at that time.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it made so much sense to me because I was like, pretty much a gym rat every day. And then when I saw you guys opening up here, it was like, oh, because I was working at Death Wish, right, in the other side of the parking lot. And for me, at first, it was like a convenience thing. But then when I started to get to know you guys and you started to write up my program and everything, and I started to get like a lot stronger, it was like, oh, this is more than a convenience thing. This is like true knowledge that just happened to open up across the parking lot.
You were part of like the original group or environment where, you were at Death Wish really early on. Where it's like we were just trying to establish who we were, build a brand, grow a community from, you had to be, we can go back and look, top 10 people, first 10 people in here.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I was going to ask, I bet you if we looked, he's got to be.
Yeah, when we were just trying to make something out of something.
Yeah, I think my name's still up on the board over there for squats.
Oh, yeah.
On the PR board.
Oh, shout out.
and if we ever erase it, it will be screenshotted and put back up on there.
Okay, good. It's not a very high number. You guys can take it down.
I'll fudge the numbers.
Okay, yeah, just take out the 2, put a 3 there. We'll be good.
But then, we were here for years together. And I remember before, like, COVID hit,
Yeah.
you went to Japan,
Yeah.
right? And it was like news that there was this COVID thing in Japan. And we were like, good
Yeah.
luck with COVID in Japan, Dustin. Like,
Yeah.
we'll be right back here. And then shit got crazy.
Yeah, dude, everything changed then. I was in this complete state of flux. Like you said, I was out in Japan when COVID hit here. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get back home. But when I did, and Death Wish was like, why don't you stay home for a couple more weeks because we don't trust that you're not sick. And in those couple of weeks, that's when everybody was sent home. And then that's when it all started. And then that's when I was like, oh, it's time to get out of New York now.
Yeah, you and the same with a lot of other people.
Yeah.
It's like nobody knew what the fuck was going on. And then it opened up my eyes into like, oh, a lot of shit's really going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people went to Florida or they went to Texas like you.
Yep.
Because that was pretty quick. You pulled the trigger and was like, I'm going down to Texas.
Well, I was seeing a girl there for a while. And the way we were going on dates, because she was living in Austin and I was living here, and I had this career and I didn't want to leave it and everything. And we would just go on trips together and like meet up in New Orleans, meet up in Hawaii, meet up in Japan. And those were our dates. And so when we fell in love and then COVID hit and it's like, we're not going to be able to see each other. And I was like, why don't I just come to Austin? It's cool there. Let's do it. Let's pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
And you're still there and you're kicking
Still there.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then, a lot of the breath work you do now, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that more, but how'd you first get into that?
Man, it was actually quite a while ago. It was probably like 16 years ago. And I was in my young 20s. And I was dealing with some health issues, like some pretty serious health issues. Actually, I'll just be candid about it. I wasn't taking a shit for like, wait, can we swear on this podcast?
Oh, fuck yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
And we've talked about shit before on the podcast.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of poop talk.
Yeah, all conversations, inevitably, if they go long enough, they're going to be about farts and shit.
Yes,
It's
let's
just
fucking
the way
talk
it
about
goes.
shit.
Especially if you got three guys,
So I had no idea about nutrition growing up, and then in my 20s, and I was eating whatever tasted good, right? And just stopped shitting. And it was like,
This is the moment that Dan Jones needs to start listening to the podcast. Just this clip. Just this clip.
Yeah, he doesn't eat great. I hope he's still shitting.
I'm just saying, just in case this happens, and then he can follow Dustin's advice.
Jay, clip this. We're just going to send it to Dan.
But I was struggling with all sorts of health issues, and somebody handed me a book called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity. And it introduced me to Taoism. And in Taoism, they have a lot of breathwork practices. And that's where I started doing the breathwork practice. And then a few years later after that, Wim Hof hit the scene. You guys are familiar with Wim Hof, right?
Sort of.
Sort of. But he has his own, he's the one that made, cold plunging and cold showering so popular. And he has his own breathing technique. And then I started to get into that. But it was always kind of a hobby thing until like it was a little bit over 3 years ago, and I was in Texas, and it was kind of random. I just had some extra time before I was going somewhere, and I was like, why don't I sit outside, do some breath work? And I started doing a little bit of this breath work, a little bit of that breath work, and I started to feel something happen. And it was really strange. It was like, this is starting to get psychedelic. So I was like, what if I keep on going? And I kept on going, and I was doing breath work for about an hour. And it started to get very psychedelic, very like colors and visions, and I couldn't stand up, and I was just in this weird place. And that was kind of an eye-opener. And then right after that, we had this ice storm hit Texas. Now, Texas is not used to.
I remember
used
that,
to
I
right?
remember
Because they were
that,
like
right.
their power grid. 'Cause
They lost.
Isn't the Texas power grid like by itself?
Yeah.
Right. That's the
Yeah,
shit.
it's a whole nother mess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so I had 5 days of no power, no water, no heat. And I had just discovered this like cool new magic trick with breath work. So that's all I did every day for 5 days. And I started doing it to music and started breathing to music, because why not put some music on the background? And being a musician and understanding rhythm, I was like, what if I start breathing to the rhythm of music? And then I started doing that, and I started thinking, man, I could build like breathwork journeys with music. And that's pretty much how it all started. I ended up finding a group called Soma Breath. And that's all these guys do. They build music tracks, and they teach people how to guide people through breathwork with music. And got certified through them, and that was pretty much the beginning of it all.
Because that'd be what, like holotropic breathing is what that would be considered, or no?
No, not at all. Holotropic breathing is a
whole different thing. What would that be?
Thing. Holotropic breathing is pretty interesting, and I got an opinion with holotropic breathing. So it was.
I like opinions.
Yeah. It was invented by a guy named Dr. Stanislav Grof, and he was head of LSD research during when the war on drugs hit, pretty much, and so it became a Schedule I drug. So he wasn't able to do research on LSD anymore. So he devised a breathing technique to give people an experience similar to LSD. And that's where holotropic breathing comes from. But as far as an experience, as far as a psychedelic experience, it can happen. And it does happen quite effectively. But you're hyperventilating for an hour through your mouth. Nothing but.
That's holotropic breathing.
That's holotropic breathing. And what that's doing, it's essentially constricting the blood vessels to your prefrontal cortex, shutting down your conscious mind, and you go all the way into your limbic system and your reptilian brain. So you're all emotion. You're just in your emotional body, essentially. And that's why you see like people freaking out, people screaming. And so as far as like a health thing, holotropic breathing is terrible for you. It's terrible for you because you're dealing with pretty much oxidation, right? You're just pumping oxygen in your body. So, and this can cause a lot of trouble. And with the breath work that I teach and other breath works, it's more about slowing your breath down and breathing less. And so no, it's not holotropic breathing.
So it's a different mechanism helping you get to the psychedelic state, the breathing that you're doing.
Yeah, it's using some of the stuff that you learn from holotropic breathing. Like I use some of that, but it's a tool, right? You can use a hammer to club in a nail, or you can, it's not going to work to cut off a piece of wood, right?
I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Yeah,
my brain went to a dark place. Started saying uses for hammers. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah. But the cool thing with the style of breath work that I teach, I go into hypoxia, which is the low oxygen state. It's pretty much the same as high elevation training. So in high elevation training, like, pretty much the mechanisms behind that. Mm-hmm. With low oxygen, your body responds to that stress state by producing more red blood cells. Mm-hmm. So you have better cardio and stuff like that. And some other cool things happen in hypoxia is that your stem cells start being released from your bone marrow as well. So it has this healing property. And then on top of that, and this is more theorized, but in my experience, it's pretty dead on, is that endogenous DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is a psychedelic drug becoming very popular now, but you actually have DMT in your system, in your body, endogenous DMT, and it dissipates in high oxygen states. So if you bring yourself to a low oxygen state, your endogenous DMT can start being released, and you start having those psychedelic sensations and psychedelic experiences, and then adding that in with a holotropic breathwork of pushing you back into your emotional body and taking your conscious mind out of it, because you're overthinking things all the time. You're thinking about this, you're thinking about that. Let's shut it down. Let's breathe heavy for a second. Shut that down. Go into a breath hold. Release that endogenous DMT, then go back into a holotropic style breathing to just move that energy around. And it's a pretty wild experience.
Yeah, I just think living in the United States and like Western society, like so much of these things just get lost, pushed to the side, talked negatively about.
Yeah.
It's there's so much merit to a lot of these things. I went to massage school after I did my undergrad.
Yeah.
I was living in Boston, and I was like, do I go to PT school? So I want to be able to treat people and learn more about the body. But I was like, I don't want to spend, the years I'm living in Boston in a classroom and going into more debt. So I said, let me just go the massage school route. There's a lot of teachers who practice Reiki, and we're all about energy. And me going in right off of like just being a fucking young 20-year-old, super science background, like looked down on a lot of that right away. And then the more I learned and got into it and worked with more people and listened to them, I'm like, this energy's a real thing between people and within yourself. And yeah, being around people all day in here, we had a class that was just like a self-care class, like just learning to like come back within yourself after, working with people all day.
Yeah.
It was the most important class I took, and probably the only fucking thing that I still use to this day.
Wow.
is stuff from that class in terms of massage school.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Reiki's an interesting thing. Reiki's one of those things I stumbled into. I'm actually technically considered a Reiki master.
Oh, no shit.
I went through all the classes and everything. I had a mentor who was really deep into it, and I learned from him. But I went into it with this really different perspective because, like, it seems strange, right? We're just waving our hands over each other and pretending that we're wizards and healing people.
Yeah, Reiki people don't know is like you're not being hands-on with somebody.
Right.
You're doing holds and you're hovering above and you're above the skin.
Yeah, and I still don't know how I fully feel about it, but somebody explained it to me this way of like, when a child gets hurt, what's the first thing that a parent will do? They'll put their hands over it, right? And it's this sending this intention of like, oh, I want you to feel better. And that's like the basic idea of Reiki that made sense to me. But for me, Reiki was more of like, it's good to use it to direct your intention and your focus. So if you're, and back to that energy, what are we focusing on? What is our intention? And that is so powerful. What are we putting our mind towards, right? Because we know this is so powerful. Where's your mind state when you're hitting a PR, right? It's not the worst day ever. You're not. Usually when you're hitting a PR, you're usually like pretty locked in mentally, right? And it's that intention that's so powerful. And with Reiki, it made a lot of sense that like, okay, now we have a thing where we have a tool where we can focus our intention in different ways.
Right. Yeah, and it's we see people in here that they just live like, whether they're like an athlete who puts pressure on themselves or an adult who has like a really stressful, busy job, and they put tremendous pressure on themselves and they live in like this fight or flight all the time.
Like high cortisol levels.
High cortisol, pumping out high cortisol all day.
Yeah, and then, then it leads to heart diseases, cancers, all these things. So it's like, what can we do to like lower those cortisol levels?
And I think breathwork is a great place to start for people. Nutrition's huge, sleep is huge.
Yeah.
There's this whole movement. Dude, I fucking remember when I messaged you about making the ice bath?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck. I haven't gotten around to it. And I've been like, let me just save up money, get a chest freezer. And then the saved up money that I had, I went like the complete other route and I bought Sam a Peloton. So now we have a fucking Peloton instead of an ice bath. But
Have you ever gotten in the ice?
never.
Really?
Never.
I've done an ice bath before. It's tough.
It's tough,
It's
man.
tough. It's not
It's
easy.
really hard.
Never.
And that's like one of the biggest things about it, right?
Yeah.
And
But I understand with the Willem Hof, you said he's the one that like kind of started the cold plunge and whatnot.
well, he
a
didn't
little bit.
start it, but he made it popularized in the Western
But I
nations,
understand how
right?
like breathing goes into that because you do have to
yeah.
because otherwise you're gonna basically like you were saying like hyperventilate almost as you're doing it. So it's like
Yeah.
it's tough.
I mean, it's still every time I drop in the tank, the first few breaths are,
Yeah.
and it's and how cool is that? We have this simulated chaotic experience, right? Where you're safe, nobody's like getting shot or anything, but you can drop in the ice and have that same reaction, like, oh, shit's going down, your body's freaking out. So you have the simulated chaotic experience where you now get to practice, like, okay, how can I calm down? How can I bring myself back down? And
Right.
you're right. That's where breathwork comes into it huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like all these, I don't want to say, I feel like right with the internet now, does it ever drive you crazy when people just like sell these cold plungers as like, this is it, this is the fix for everything, and there's tremendous benefit.
Yeah.
Freezing body fat off.
Yeah. Let's because I feel like people just miss big rocks, right? Like moving your body and
Yeah.
sleeping right.
Yeah.
And nutrition. Like you agree those are the bigger rocks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And people want the magic pill.
Right.
We're a culture of magic pill desirers, and even with psychedelics, you hear about it like, oh, ayahuasca. You drink ayahuasca once, it's like therapy for 10 years, and people go there thinking that they're going to just hit the switch and everything's going to be different after that. That's not the way life works. It's all these tiny decisions that we're making for ourselves that make big changes after a while, right?
Right.
It's not like I'm going to go to the gym, come back home and be jacked.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. Nothing works like that.
Small habits build big changes.
Right.
But
That's
it's
what it
cool that people are talking more about psychedelics, right?
Yeah. I have a mixed feeling about it because I think it's cool and I think it's very helpful, but I also so where I come from in Austin, they throw around this word called medicine and they call psychedelics medicine. But I also see a lot of people abusing psychedelics because they have this bypass by calling it medicine. Oh, I'm taking my medicine. I'm taking my medicine, right? It's the same thing with like when your doctor prescribes you Oxys or Oxycontin.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I'm taking my medicine. I'm taking it. You're not healing. I promise you, that's not making things better. We're making
and you're
things
viewing
worse
people
here.
that view psychedelics like that as a similar thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a similar thing. And like, don't get me wrong, and we'll go into the benefits, I'm sure, but I see a lot of abuse still with this. And also there's just like nobody really knows what they're doing with this.
Well, because then you start to talk about, because things are starting to get cleared for certain medical use, right?
Yeah.
PTSD and depression and
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot with like ketamine. Ketamine's a big one that we're seeing come out and being used in a therapeutic sense. But I also see like, this company Mindbloom, which just sends you ketamine nasal spray to your doorstep.
it's legitimate ketamine.
And it's legitimate ketamine, and like they're just like, here, use this, and people are now just like just using it whenever they want.
Well, you said before. I mean, you had the war on drugs, and all of a sudden everything gets classified and becomes illegal, and then you have the other extreme where it's like, well, let's just open up everything and make it legal. Yeah. But you see the issue there being like people don't know how to use this shit.
Yeah, and also like we don't have a cultural background in using this stuff.
Yeah, great
and that's
point.
why we see people going to like South America for these ayahuasca experiences, because we have a whole culture, thousands of years of people using this stuff and actually using it like a medicine and know what it does and know how to work with it and know how to create a setting for somebody to have a healing experience, and not just like some 28-year-old kid who thinks he can start serving psychedelics, and it's like you're in some basement freaking out being like, I'm going to die on this hippie kid's floor,
Right, but you're right. It's going to be hard to do that in our society because of our I want my magic pill mentality and culture. That doesn't exist in these other cultures and past civilizations.
Well, and how it's just depicted in any sort of media or anything like that too. It's still not,
I feel like it's becoming
more, but I just think, in the sports world, with that, talking about the ayahuasca, they're talking, with Aaron Rodgers.
Did he get a lot of negative flack for that?
He got so much negative flack for that, the darkness retreat, like all these things. And it's like, not like, I'm not a big Aaron Rodgers fan, but I feel like he did come out of it as a different person and more, even like almost more like well-spoken and well thought out. And do I agree with everything he says? No. But do I think he is well thought out and actually cares about what he's talking about? And yes, and I think he did have a good experience through it. But it was, and even myself, just because I was like, I don't like Aaron Rodgers, so I kind of hopped on the bandwagon of like talking down it. But then I learned more about it, and I go, it probably actually worked for him. And then there's another NFL player that did it, and he spoke nothing but highly about it. So I think it is coming around, but it's still in major media outlets, not.
But you're right. You can't have these 25-year-old kids, serving
Aaron
up shit
Rodgers
in their basement.
Is 40. He was like, I need to figure out, do I still want to play football? Is this what I want to do, or do I need to find another path in my life?
When's the first time you took ayahuasca?
So it was shortly after I moved to Austin. And actually, let me back up a little bit, because my first deep experience with psychedelics, and I used it recreationally as a kid, and that's a totally different experience. But it's kind of funny, when I went out to visit Austin once, I kind of stumbled into a ceremony with this substance called bufo, and I'm assuming neither of you guys have heard of this.
Jay, you hear of it?
No. Okay. So there's DMT, which we hear a lot about, but there's different forms of DMT, and usually when people are talking about DMT, they're talking about NN-DMT. Bufo is 5-MeO-DMT, which is taken from a toad, a Sonoran desert toad, and it's the venom that they secrete from their glands. And they take this stuff and they dry it out, and you vaporize it and you inhale it and you smoke it. And I didn't know anything about it, but I was going to visit my girlfriend at the time in Austin. And she was like, hey, I booked this thing. Oh, okay. So I was going to fly there. Snowed here, had to move my flight to Austin to the next weekend. She's like, actually, I booked this thing that weekend, and I don't know if you're interested in it. Maybe we can find room for you. And I was like, sure, why not? I'm kind of a yes guy. That sounds interesting. Let's go for it. So I had no idea what I was walking into. I've heard of DMT. I'd never experienced DMT before. And so it was one of those things like, it was kind of a sketchy operation, but I was like, fuck it. Let's just go for it. And I smoked this stuff, right? And at first it didn't hit me. I saw some swirls, some colors. I felt it. DMT has a very unique feeling. And then they're like, okay, you ready for a big one? I'm like, okay, let's go for a big one. And I died. Like literally I was laying there on the ground being like, I'm going to die on these ladies' floor. This one lady's like blowing a didgeridoo in my face.
Jesus Christ. And you're like, I'm fucking dying
right
now.
No, like I'm dying. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm dying. I can just let go because I don't have a choice. And then had a complete like life-changing experience. It was actually soon after that I moved to Austin because I had some pretty clear realizations there. And it was funny when I came back from that, one of the first things I did, I came back home, came to work, came out here, worked out, and I hit my deadlift PR right after that.
No shit.
That was my 415 for 3 deadlift PR right after that, but yeah, it was a crazy experience.
That's what people say, right? With like DMT or psilocybin, and Jay, maybe you can speak more to this, but it like gives you this perspective on you and what matters.
Yes.
And where you like fucking how small you are in the universe. And
well, it's the near-death experience, right? So you hear about people having the near-death experience. They see the white light. All these realizations come into play. It's the same thing with this drug, with this substance, is that you see the white light, you die, you see God, you feel God. It's so intense, which is an extremely powerful tool, right? Who wouldn't be curious in that? But this can be abused, right?
Right. And this is what you said to begin with, is like people think they can do that. And do some people have one experience, 2 experiences, and they feel like their PTSD or their depression, their anxiety is significantly better?
Yeah. Simple answer is yes, especially if you're dealing with a lot. And I think for, military coming back home and dealing with PTSD, we're hearing some great stories of people coming back and like relieving that stuff. I've also met ex-military people with PTSD, and that's like all they do now. They just smoke DMT, and like, that's okay. It's better than sitting around and wanting to kill yourself, but is it where you want to be in life? Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. It's very seductive. It's a beautiful feeling to come in contact with God, but it's too easy. It's too easy just to like smoke this substance, be with God for 15 minutes and come back. And I don't know. You got to work for a near-death experience.
Yeah. Do people have similar experiences, like they see similar things, or everybody's different?
Everybody's different, and it's different every time. It's different every time. The first time was the most strange, unique experiences. Now, I'm a very practical, like, I come from a corporate logistics and supply chain background.
Yeah.
And, like, to experience past lives and to experience God was like so mind-blowing for me. I genuinely experienced, like, maybe it was my imagination, but I was in a past lifetime experiencing other lives for like full lifetimes. It only lasts for 15 minutes, but man, it feels like an eternity. It's very, very strange.
Like past lives of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember specifically, it's so strange. I remember looking around a battlefield and seeing like dead people all around. And it was the sensation of, okay, we won the war. We won this battle, which is like amazing. We were able to protect our family. We were able to protect our tribe. But I'm also looking at all my friends who died doing this all around me, and this feeling of the senselessness of fighting and like all this feeling just flowing into me. It was so wild, running my hands through blades of grass with blood on it, which I realized came from a scene in Gladiator. But, but I experienced it for real for myself.
I realized afterwards that I was just reliving Gladiator.
That's fair. That's fair. But to actually like be in that and have that shift in your life
It's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, so good. I'm so excited for the next one.
The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Oh, it's phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing, I guess, right, we're in New York, we're in upstate New York, like, people are less open to this here than, say, somewhere like Austin or I'm sure other places in the country. But we were saying off air before, like, these things are popping up everywhere. People trying to do this in my basement. We're going to do it here and there. And you're saying it's getting culty too down there.
Well, you know, you have these substances that are perfectly built for brainwashing, right? You can remold. When you use these substances, especially DMT and like ayahuasca, you end up in this like form that's like putty. Right. And especially with ayahuasca, you end up in this form of like clay, like unmolded clay. Like you just hit the reset button and you're totally like it's restarted. And this is why it's so important, like after an ayahuasca experience, to really take your time to integrate the experience, because you're reshaping your reality now. So having this idea of reshaping reality, people who have the intention, especially narcissists, who have this intention to want people to worship them and want to build whatever they want to build, like psychedelics are the perfect tool to start rebuilding this. And I've seen it, I've experienced it. It's not good.
So we'll have a Netflix series on that.
Is this proven?
It's happening.
Is this a proven thing, or is this like conspiracy, like the CIA and like Charles Manson back in the day and LSD? Jay, you've looked into that or no?
What? Go on. I don't know what you're saying.
You speak to it better than me? You want me
to? There's a guy, I can't remember the name of the author, but he took like 20 years to write this book.
So they gave, I forget his name too, Jay. Look up the name of the book, but he was supposed to do like a newspaper.
Tom O'Neill.
Supposed to do a newspaper article, and it ended up becoming this like years and years of just going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, it all stems from MK Ultra, right, where they were just... I mean, even in MK Ultra, there's this funny thing where they were experimenting with the brown note. You familiar with the brown note?
Go ahead.
It's a frequency that makes you shit yourself. Back to shitting ourselves.
Yep, back to the shit.
And so there's a frequency that can be produced that's so low that people just their bowels release.
That's what you needed.
Yeah,
you needed a brown
That's
note.
what you needed.
That's what I'm going to start. That's what I'm going to start building into breathing into the void. We're just gonna, at the end, the full ayahuasca experience. We get to shit ourselves. But yeah, they were just pretty much experimenting with any kind of mind-altering, body-altering substances or tools to see if they could use that for warfare. Or think about this frequency that we could just make a whole army shit themselves and we can just go in and take over. But yeah, it all stems from MK Ultra, and Charles Manson was a huge part of that. And that is the example of how cults can start from psychedelics. And he was using LSD.
Or MK Ultra was supplying him with LSD, right?
Yeah, the CIA was. Yeah, it's very wild. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of that in Austin, and it's pretty scary, man. It's pretty scary to see it, because it's like anybody who can get a hold of this stuff, you gotta wonder. And to anybody listening who's curious about using psychedelics, first of all, don't use it by yourself. Find somebody who can help you through this, but also vet the person you're working with. Oh my God, vet them heavily and make sure they're vetting you, because you want to make sure that you're in the right place to experience
what's a scenario, in your opinion, where somebody isn't suited to do psychedelics?
Mental illness, and that's the tricky thing, right? Because people are dealing with these mental illnesses. They want to cure this, so they turn to psychedelics. Well, this can trigger schizophrenia. And I've seen people come from like that Bufo, that 5-MeO experience, and they are talking like this weird thing happens. I forgot what they call it. But where you are getting messages from God now. And that is such dangerous territory, to be like, I'm no longer speaking for myself. God speaks through me.
Right.
That's no
So
good.
It's like if you have, or schizophrenia is in your family, it's like you should be aware of things like that.
Yeah, big time. And so it's somebody gave a different name to psychedelics that I think is way more appropriate, which is a non-specific amplifier. So This is back to intention. This is why intention is so important, especially when using this stuff. Like, what are we amplifying here? Because it is very non-specific. We think it's going to amplify all these amazing, beautiful things, but back to set and setting, and why set and setting is so important, because you're going to be so sensitive and you're going to be amplified in a way that you better make sure that your surroundings and the people that you're working with are in a good place. They say clean your house before you take mushrooms.
Right.
I agree with that.
I think you got to go back to what their origins are, right? Like South America. I'm sure any past civilization, psychedelics were a part of either their religion or their society.
Even Christianity, man.
Like psychedelic early Christianity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think his name is, I can't remember his name. He wrote this book called The Immortality Key. And this guy, and they created like a whole study on it from his books. But this guy is studying ancient relics and testing the substances that were used in them. And we're finding all throughout Christianity, those things that they swing back and forth, that smoke is coming out of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, psychedelics, man.
Not shocked.
Yeah, and we've seen this throughout time and history, that the use of psychedelics, even with animals. And there's this popular video of a jaguar I think it's eating an ayahuasca vine, but it just starts tripping out, and like we just have this natural disposition in our DNA to be drawn to altering our minds. And I think that's a totally normal thing, and we stigmatized it in our culture to a way where we're just like, we're confused children when we're working with this stuff.
Well, and it's also, to me, because what is it? They tell you only use a certain % of your brain, right? Like it's unlocking.
I think that was proven false.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure we're using all the synapses and neurons in our brain.
I don't know if everybody is.
Yeah, I see people in here. Good point, Paul. Good point.
Actually, I think I remember hearing once that it was specifically with mushrooms that it's actually shutting down a part of your brain.
Yeah.
And so you're using
less of your brain,
but
part,
a specific part of your brain, which is probably more into that limbic system again, back into that emotional body. So there's this weird thing that happens when you have a traumatic experience. It stores as a memory first in your prefrontal cortex for, I think it's like something like 60 or 90 days. And if you haven't worked through that and haven't had the therapeutic response to take care of that and work that out, it then stores into your limbic system. And this is where that PTSD and trauma things start to happen, because it's no longer a memory that we can pull up and work with and remember and like now look at it as an adult and be like, oh, that makes more sense, right?
Yeah.
And it stores into our body. And all these weird things start to happen.
we see that with, and I've seen over the years with chronic pain clients.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's say that you let's just do a really simple example. You tear a muscle in your shoulder. Now, biology is going to do its thing, and that tissue is going to heal, and you have scar tissue lay down, and you're moving your arm again, so you're re-strengthening that scar tissue. But maybe you become fearful of doing certain movements. Maybe you just have past trauma in your life. Now all of a sudden, this tissue that's healed, it's killing you every day.
Yeah.
You're healed, but you have this nervous system response. You have this fear. You have this trauma, and it just compiles on itself.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I can't remember. I'm blanking on author names right now, but the body keeps a score, and it's a huge thing of just like, this stuff stores in our body, and how can we work this out? That's why I've gotten into like breath work, and also movement is such a huge part of releasing trauma.
Is huge. It's it's just like that. The holistic view. It's like, let's move my body. Let's take care of my mental health.
Yes.
It's it's like in its infancy now with things being right. Like there's trials and studies now on ketamine and probably other things. Where does it end up in our country? Do things become legal? Things just for medical use? Does the pharmaceutical industry grab a hold of things?
Yes.
That's what happens.
Yeah. As soon as we're a capitalist society, whether you like that or not, that I don't really have an opinion there. But if we find something that's going to make us money, we're going to find a way to make us more money. And we're finding things we already saw it with marijuana, with cannabis, of just like, we can make a lot of money from this. And all of a sudden there's cannabis everything, right?
But that also brings society's views change on it.
Yeah.
And even mine, I think growing up, right, I'm just like, fucking drugs are bad 'cause that's what they told me in school. And you have this negative view. And then you meet people and it has such a profound impact in a positive way on their life.
Yeah.
To relax, less anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like even me now, Jay, like at night now, I don't drink that much anymore, but I'll pop a THC seltzer and a fucking gummy and like chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like the view of society has changed tremendously in a positive way.
Fucking dare.
Which dare's a war on drugs thing, right?
It's 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even remember what that shit stands for.
I think
Drugs something something something.
Yes. What does it stand for, Jay? What's it stand for, Jay?
Drugs against something.
Drug abuse resistance education.
Yeah. Okay.
Which has its place. Jay, remember when we had our daughter last year? You know, we sent pictures to our family, and then Dad.
You guys had a daughter together?
Not me and Jay, me and my wife. That'd be some fucking weird. Yeah, it was fucking. Can we talk about shitting ourselves again? But our parents sent back a picture of me when I was born. Remember Dad's shirt, Jay?
Yeah,
What was his shirt?
Let me find it and get back to you in a minute.
It was like some anti-drug shirt, right?
No, it was cheeky. It was like making fun of anti-drug stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I just remember it was some fucking making fun of Dare's shirt.
Yeah.
But whatever. Well,
it was like a plate of eggs. And it was like, this is your brain on drugs, and then a plate of eggs with toast. It was like, this is your brain on drugs with toast.
That's like what it was.
I used to have this shirt, and I still like this saying: "Say perhaps to drugs." Perhaps, not yes. Mm-hmm. It's not the all saver, not no. And I think the best way to approach anything, of course, is my humble opinion, open-minded skepticism. Be open-minded. Like, don't go off of what everybody else is telling you. Don't go off of what the government is telling you. Like, be skeptical, but be open-minded with it too. Like, form your own opinion.
And don't be afraid to like talk about it.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
'Cause forming your own opinion, you got to be able to talk with somebody else to see, okay, is what I'm thinking in the right realm? Is it not? Should I maybe be more open-minded to this side of things?
Right.
So like being able to discuss your opinion without going back and forth and arguing. Like,
Yeah.
it happens
But that's
all the time
society
now.
today. You name the topic, and you have just fucking extreme view here and an extreme view here. And most of the time, like, in the middle is where things are good and it's okay, but people don't bring themselves there.
Well, that's what we see on TV is that the extreme views and in Instagram. But the majority of society lives in that gray area. So you can have those discussions with the majority of people. It's when you get to those extremes. And then,
but I guess the internet doesn't make it seem like that's the majority of people.
Just like the internet doesn't make it seem like the majority of fitness people are like us, but you know, majority of them are.
Yeah.
They're not the, 6-pack abs and let me show you how to get washboard abs by doing this 6-minute ab routine. Like,
right.
No, that's not the majority of fitness people, but that's what you see.
Yeah.
Because the algorithm or whatever, or how they're on there all the time.
Yeah.
That's all they can do is be on social media. That's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Whereas I think most people live in the area that we're at, like, the what would you say? Something skepticism?
Open-minded
skepticism.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like most people probably live in that area. And if they don't, they should.
Yeah. And also, like, you're not your opinions.
Yeah.
Which is great because then your opinions can change.
Right?
Yeah.
It's fluid.
It is fluid. And also, you can have a different opinion than me, and we can disagree and still get along.
Yep.
I can still like you even though you have a different opinion, and it's mostly because our opinions can change, and they're not going to change if we keep on going the way we're going, where it's like, you're your opinion and I hate your opinion, so I hate you.
Right.
It's like, that's not good.
No.
Not good.
Yeah.
Do you guys focus on breathing at all within your training?
So I first got into breathwork and breathing in the realm of like incorporating it during fitness and exercise. And it's kind of like a culty organization. And I'm like very removed from like really just practice. This field people get stuck in their like lanes. Like, well, I only do things through this school of thought. And well, every other school of thought is wrong. Because it's a lot of young kids in their 20s and they get into this field and they have egos and like, the way that I practice is right and this is wrong.
Yeah.
So there's this one like training organization called PRI, the Pastoral Restoration Institute. Their big thing is that the body's asymmetrical, which you can't argue that you have, right? If you go to your diaphragm, you have higher attachments on the right side of your lumbar spine than the left. You have the liver on one side, not on the other. And that because of really like that foundation there, or liver on the right side, higher attachments on the right side of the diaphragm, that it can pull your body into asymmetrical patterns. And they use breathing techniques as kind of their foundation to help get people a little bit more balanced.
Yeah.
And when you look at people moving ranges of motion, like if they play a one-side dominant sport like baseball, you'll see some of these patterns played out.
Yeah.
And they start everything kind of really proximal, and like at your midsection, they look at the rib cage position and pelvis position and kind of branch off from there.
Interesting.
So when I first got into that postural restoration, they used a lot of just using breaths in different positions to help people move the rib cage better. And then that kind of got me into looking into Wim Hof and box breathing and other breathing techniques. In here, we'll do some positional breathing exercises still. And then just kind of cueing breathing within sets.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think we do in here.
Yeah. See, I went too far in like the rehab realm when I was younger.
Yeah.
Where I was trying to correct every little imbalance.
Yeah.
And now you're losing out from fitness benefits.
Right.
And people are like coming to the gym to improve their fitness, right? They want to gain muscle, improve their cardiovascular system. They want to lose some weight. So you just got to pick and choose what you're spending with the hour that you have with somebody.
Yeah. That was the first thing that popped in my head, is just like teaching people how to brace through their breathing.
Right. That's
like,
big.
Because so many people don't, or they're holding their breath the whole time, and I'm like, you're gonna die.
Yeah, right.
And the analogy I always give them, I'm like, do you hold your breath when you run? And they're like, no. And I was like, yeah, because you die.
Yeah.
You would die.
Yeah.
And they're like, and I was like, yeah, you got to find a rhythm with your breathing, because that's what I try to tell them. Like, it's gonna put you into a rhythm too, so therefore you're able to perform better. Because
but it's like if I told somebody,
you're in a rhythm with it.
Yeah.
Like if there's one way to help you kind of control your nervous system, help you recover, help you feel more relaxed, it's like
Breathing.
being in control of your breathing is the move. That is the answer.
Yeah. How much do you focus on like nasal versus mouth breathing?
I'll focus on nasal breathing more. If we're doing these positional breathing exercises, so for us here, we're really not going into the much detail of our programming with the asymmetrical stuff. But we'll do it a lot with people that are really extended. Like you'll see it with power lifters, and then you'll see people who are super high stress. They'll go into this fight or flight extension pattern where rib cage flares up, pelvis goes forward, the big muscles, the lats and the pecs get really tight.
Yeah.
So we'll use positional breathing to get them a little bit more flexed, get the rib cage to move down, get the pelvis to to like tuck like posteriorly a little bit, help all those muscles relax. So when we're doing breathing like that, you know, we'll use an inhale through the nose, a pause, an exhale through the mouth, a pause, almost like a box
Kinda
breathing,
like a box breathing. Yeah.
And I've started to be more aware of my own cardio. Like when I'm on the assault bike, I'm trying to nasal breathe the whole time, and it's fucking hard.
It's hard.
I do this thing every Wednesday. I just kill myself. I don't lift. I get on the bike, 2-mile sprint, and then I get off and I put my feet on the wall and I just breathe.
Yeah.
I let my heart rate drop below 120, and then I do a mile. Same thing. And then I go like 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1 and smash it. And the benefits, my getting a quicker time overall doesn't come by me moving faster, but it's my heart rate recovering better. Me getting to that 120 quicker.
Yeah. So those are the things that I think about most when using breath work with fitness. Is just like, are you nasal breathing? Nasal nitric oxide. How familiar are you with nasal nitric oxide?
Explain.
It's pretty huge. It's vasodilator. That's the biggest thing, right? So your heart rate's naturally going to slow down. You're going to have better blood flow. But also there's some cool things with nasal nitric oxide where it actually works better for, it gives you more bone density, which is huge.
It's huge.
Right?
You're saying you're intentionally nasal breathing only.
Yeah. Yeah. Inhale through the nose mostly. And then also timing your breath with your lift. Right, that's huge. When are you gonna explode?
Yeah, because when it comes to heavy training, like the Valsalva maneuver is like where you gotta inhale and brace and hold because you want to have good like intra-abdominal pressure. You want to have your spine, you want to have all the muscles around your spine braced really tight.
It's like wearing a lifting belt when you can breathe right into your diaphragm.
It's your own lifting belt. Yeah. You're using your body appropriately.
That's huge.
To create all that good tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of injuries we see in terms of like the lumbar spine that's due to lifting is a lack of being able to brace and create that intra-abdominal pressure.
Yes.
Because if you don't have all of those active, all of your muscles working for you, then the weight's going to move because you're going to move it if it's not too heavy of a load. But then you're relying on these passive constraints or restraints. You're relying on, discs and ligaments. And that's what you don't want to happen when you're heavy training. We've all been there before.
Yeah.
We all have.
And then recovery of like in between sets.
Think about this. Yeah. If you can improve how you breathe, and you're able to, is this right, Dustin, like take fewer breaths during the day, and then at the same time you're improving your aerobic fitness, so you're dropping your resting heart rate. Like, dude, when you're just walking around working, like your body is not taxing itself as much.
Right. So there's two sides to your nervous system. There's a parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is your rest, digest, regenerate.
What I love about you, I watched one of the videos online, and what was it saying with science and spirituality? Blending science and something like that it said. But I'm like, because a lot of people probably in your space maybe don't know as much of the science, right?
Man, yeah.
Because you're dealing with people's bodies. So it's like, you have this purology part that's so important, but also like, what's the physiology here? Like, what's going on with somebody?
Like I said, I come from a more logistical background, and I'm a very pragmatic person, and I want to learn the science behind the things. I think spirituality for me is more of my creative side, and that's just going to come out as you can't purposely be creative, right? So
I tried, it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. But if I can focus on the more scientific side of things, the spirituality will just come out naturally as creativity does. But you have your true nervous system: parasympathetic, sympathetic. Parasympathetic, rest, digest, regenerate. Sympathetic is fight or flight. Now the problem is, in our society, we're so in our sympathetic nervous system. We're stressed out. We're driving around 70 miles per hour in a 2-ton vehicle, ready to smash into somebody else, chugging coffee, chugging our Starbucks, and
it's like that's the life we're in. But our biology is still like fucking cavemen.
Yeah.
We're not meant for all this.
Yeah. And like recovery comes in that parasympathetic nervous system. How much can you work within that parasympathetic nervous system? So most of the time when I'm working with a client with breathwork, it's about slowing your breath down. The easiest way to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system is to extend the exhale. Just a long, slow exhale. And then boom, you start to calm down, you start to relax, stop producing so much cortisol, stop being so stressed out. And it's like, it's cool. It's like a remote control that you have. A saying that that I came up with a while ago is that your nervous system is an orchestra and your breath is the conductor. It's not the end all be all, but it is guiding the way for the orchestra to go. So if you can change your breath into a more calmer, slower breath, your whole nervous system is going to calm down.
100%.
But at the same time, like if you need to pump yourself up, if you need energy, start breathing. Just like think about like when you get pulled over by a cop or like something stressful is happening. How are you breathing? Through your mouth, shallow breaths through the chest. If you want energy, that's how you do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you shouldn't be living that all day. And we see orthopedic costs of that in here. People with tight neck and neck issues. And right, because you think about your accessory breathing muscles, your SCMs, your scalenes, your pec minor. It's like you see this crazy tone in all these muscles. Now I like can't rotate my neck anymore. My neck hurts. I've lost some shoulder mobility. Like you can improve some mobility like all through your upper body, ribcage, thoracic spine, shoulders, just through learning to breathe a little bit better.
I never thought about that. Like,
we see
using all those neck muscles and shoulder muscles and chest muscles to
if you're
breathe.
just a mouth breather and you can't control your breath and you don't get good enough exhales, it's like, all those are going to get tighter, 100%.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we see that in here.
I'm still, even though it's like all I live, eat, and breathe breath work, I still catch myself breathing shallow through my chest, shoulders up, you know, even now sitting here doing a podcast and I feel my shoulders fighting to go up and I'm like dragging them back down. No, slow down your breath, breathe through your nose, slow it down. Here we go. And it's like, it's great to have that awareness to keep on making those adjustments.
Oh yeah, 100%. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. How'd you first get into, like, what was your start when you started running classes for breathwork? Like now it's turned into, what do you call it, breathing into the void?
Yeah. Well, you know, it was that idea of mixing breathwork and music. And so I started teaching here and there once I got my certification to just kind of get that under me. But breathing into the void was, for me, I saw a gap or a possibility within the breathwork realm. And I see, you know, a lot of people teaching breathwork in this like mystical woo healing way of just, that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. It didn't speak to me and probably doesn't speak to a lot of people, like the military guy coming back home dealing with PTSD. He sits down, puts on headphones, tries to listen to breathwork, and some lady's like, open up your chakras, open up your lowest chakra. Then it's like, I'll get into that a little bit, but for me, the gap that I saw is like, oh, this can be a performative thing. And being a musician my whole life, being a touring musician and being into rock and roll and being into the performance of things, I'm like, oh, this can be a performative thing, especially with the music element. And then I can get into like the woo stuff for fun, because it's like, now we're just playing. This is pretty fun. So let's use our imagination to see where our brain can take us. And so that was pretty much the idea of breathing into the void. The intention is back to the psychedelic thing, and I saw everybody and their mother serving psychedelics to people, and they don't know what they're doing, and it just like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. And there's also the people who don't want to take psychedelics or think it's too weird or can't take psychedelics because of occupation or whatever it is. And so breathing into the void was my way to introduce a psychedelic experience to people who don't necessarily want to take psychedelics or deal with the consequences of taking psychedelics.
So you're helping them achieve these psychedelic states through the breathing.
Yeah.
How intentional are you with the music that you choose and the frequency? Do you create it all yourself?
No, I haven't gotten too much into that yet. I'm starting to dip my toes into that, and it's like it's a whole nother layer of things to create my own music. So I'm very intentional, very, very intentional. I become more and more intentional as I get deeper into this. So the group that I'm certified through, Soma Breath, they provide a lot of music, and it is perfectly made for what I want to do. But I've been getting more into curate. How do you say that?
Curating? Is that the word? Curating?
I'm not the best at English, but I'm pretty sure it's curating.
Help me here, Paul.
I think it's curated.
So I started doing more of that, of just like, I noticed I would listen to a song and be like, oh my God, that'd be perfect for breathwork. So then I start recording over it, put some breathing sounds into it, put some counting to get the timing down. And then, I went to school for conducting and performance. So I bring that into the mix. And yeah, I don't know. I just want it to be, have you ever gone to a concert and gotten like the chills on your skin, or listened to a song, gotten the chills on your skin, or you're coming home from like that perfect show and you're like, oh my God, I could die today and I die happy. And it's like, I want to blend that into then the therapeutic experience and the therapeutic use of breath work to create this. Like, I don't need to think that I'm healing people. I can just give them a really cool experience, and the healing will happen all on its own. I don't need to pound on a keyboard and just be like, heal, 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 heal.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, man, that's true. How's the alchemy over there?
It's good. I like it. I actually had a little bit of caffeine before I got here, and I'm like sitting next to the door, so I'm a little bit cold, and I'm like trying not to be too jittery.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, and
I'm sipping it.
We do turn the heat off during this part.
Yeah, so don't deal with
the noise
That's
of it.
why. Sorry,
That's why I got my
Dustin.
sweet, ugly Christmas sweater on.
Alchemy. Intelligence in a can.
But I feel like nootropics is another thing. I mean, that's just become more of a buzzword or popular as of late in the supplement industry.
Yes.
Alpha Brain was probably the first one.
They weren't the first, but they were early.
Like early and like marketed hard. I
Yeah,
feel
they were
like.
one of the ones that was really marketed hard, I feel like.
I love it though. I love Alpha Brain. Dude, that helped me so much. Like, Alpha Brain for me was that like turning point in my life when I went from being like drug using musician doing nothing to then I started getting into jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. When I don't know, I just started making better decisions. Those little decisions that we're making and having like a little boost in that decision making category of our brain. I don't know. I think that helps so much.
No, it's real. I mean, I'm so sensitive to caffeine.
Yeah.
And I work crazy long hours in here. It's not as crazy as it used to be, but when we first opened, I did. So I'm just like slugging Death Wish all day and getting through, but feeling like shit.
Yeah, and what that does to like your adrenal system, it's not good. It's not good.
Like crazy. I don't know the full truth to this, but I knew the dentist in forever, and a few years ago I went and I grind my teeth like a motherfucker.
Same.
And my dentist said, you know how much coffee you drink? I go, oh, dude, like, I don't even know, 3-4 cups a day. And he's like, you could have so much acidity in your stomach that you're grinding all night to try to get saliva down to like balance out the pH.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I never thought of that, but it makes some sense.
Yeah, no, I'm into that.
Yeah. And I was like, no fucking shit.
Interesting. I never thought about like trying to get the pH balance, and that's why you grind. I always thought it was just like, I'm stressed out.
That's me too. I mean, it's probably the best of both worlds on that front.
Oh.
But yeah, but I feel so much better taking just lion's mane in there. What else is the nootropic in there, Dustin?
Oh,
I know there's lion's mane. I don't even know either. But dude, I feel so much better when I just have one of these, a little caffeine from green tea, and then the lion's mane, and yeah, I'm like focused, but not like fucking want to jump out of my skin.
Nicotine's becoming like a big thing.
Zins are
too.
huge
Dude,
right now.
I love Zins. Speaking of which, is my fanny pack over there? Do you see the black fanny pack?
Yeah.
All right, good.
I did just see like
we're gonna pop a Zin.
Somebody was talking about that.
What's that?
You got an extra Zin?
Yeah. You want one? Yeah. All right, Zin o'clock. Yeah. Zin 30.
Woo woo!
Oh no.
Here, I dipped forever in college.
Yeah.
I've never done a Zin.
You want to try?
Yeah, Zin me up.
When's the last time you had nicotine?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh God, fucking years. I'm just gonna get a quick buzz.
Maybe a little something else.
Tuck it into your cheek and then don't touch it again.
Is this something
you don't have to spit, right?
No, but you also don't want to you don't want a bunch of nicotine
Mike's
saliva.
not going to be in the bathroom after this, is he?
It'll start with hiccups. Like if you start feeling the hiccups, then you should probably like kick that out. Zen.
Zins me up.
No, nicotine's really interesting. It has this ability to help us information gate. And if you're not familiar with
I'm gonna
Dustin, did you
rock.
get one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a thing that we do called information gating, where if you and I are sitting in a room and the room is loud, but I'm able to focus on what you're saying, right? Even though maybe the people around me are being louder than you, I'm able to information gate, to just lock on to noise gate and just lock on to you. Well, people with ADD, people with schizophrenia, and other mental illnesses have an issue with noise gating. That's why people with ADD, they can be like everywhere. Well, nicotine has this really cool ability to help you information gate, to help you lock in. That's why it helps you focus. That's why it's considered like this grounding thing. And it's like 15 minutes after consuming nicotine, you have better information gating. And that's why you see people self-medicating. If they have ADD, if they have schizophrenia, they'll be like usually heavy smokers. And that's because
they're trying to noise gate.
Yeah, they're trying to lock in because they're just taking everything in from the world, and it can be too much.
Like, Jay, if you were to bang out and really lock in on a writing assignment, are you zenning it up?
When I'm not zenning it up, when I go on my little writing retreats, I bring a pouch of tobacco and rolling papers and just go. Yeah. Is that what you were just saying? Is that specific to nicotine, or is that stimulants at large?
I know it is specific to nicotine. Yeah, I don't know about other stimulants. Yeah.
I just saw.
How's that taste?
What is it, wintergreen?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's just a little minty.
Yeah.
I think I have the hiccups. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I just saw. I forget who it was. Somebody that I respect in like the fitness industry. That's pretty well known. I can't remember who it was though. They have a big following on Instagram, and they were talking about how like they'll use it to help them focus for workouts, things like that.
I think it's like what you were saying though. It's finding the right. It's like you can't have this negative connotation on drugs as a whole. This umbrella that everything's bad.
Yeah.
Or this umbrella that everything's good and everything should be fully legal and you do it. It's like there's intentions. There should be intentions, right, to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, what are your intentions to putting this in your body? What are you trying to get out of it?
Right. And then sometimes I also think it's okay to have a good time.
Right.
Like, it doesn't always have to be so serious. Like, if you want to party and let loose, like, don't make that a habit, but that's an okay intention sometimes too. But you just got to be realistic where you are. Am I using this to feel better, or am I using this as a tool? And if you're using it to feel better consistently, you should probably take a deeper look at like your use of this substance, whatever it is, whether it's caffeine, alcohol, anything.
Well, that's something in here a lot of times. Like, I'll get a middle school or a high school kid that's like, I think I need like pre-workout.
Yeah, pre-workout's a big thing.
Or just like an energy drink. And I'm like, well, let's talk about some things first.
Okay, because caffeine is a fucking drug. It's a crazy stimulant.
Yeah.
Like, do you read Michael Pollan's book, Your Mind on Plants?
Yeah, that's good, man.
It's a great book, and he has like, I think there's a Netflix series on it too. Did you watch it, Jay?
No, I didn't know there was a series.
No, but he says he didn't have caffeine for some decent duration, and he said after his first cup of coffee was like an experience.
Yeah, it gets psychedelic. It gets psychedelic. Same thing with nicotine too. So there's this substance called rapé or hape that they use during ayahuasca ceremonies, and it's a powdered tobacco, and it's more of like a natural wild grown tobacco. It's about 9 times stronger than the tobacco that they use for like normal cigarettes, and it's put into like this little pipe thing and blown right up into your nose, directly into your nasal cavity.
What's this called again?
It's called rape or hape, and it's spelled R-A-P-E with an accent aigu. But yeah, but yeah, dude, this stuff is, and that gets psychedelic, where it'll just like you didn't think tobacco could do that to you, but it will floor you for hours. It's something else, man.
You've done that?
Oh yeah. I don't do it too much anymore because, back to the breathwork thing, having even particulates of that small being blown into your nasal cavity like repetitively is not good for you. But Yeah, it's an experience. It's an experience, but it is like it's really good for grounding, and that's why they use it for ayahuasca, because they'll use it before you drink the ayahuasca to help you ground, to be like, because you sit there, you show up to this ceremony, and you don't know who these people are, and there's all these things going on, and your mind's kind of everywhere, and you're about to drink like this really powerful psychedelic. Well, to bring it all back in, and then all of a sudden you're like, the only thing you're thinking about is...
You're just noise gated.
Yeah, you're locked in because the only thing you're thinking about is the stuff that just went up your nose, and you're like, oh God, nothing else matters. And it makes you purge, makes you vomit too. Pretty rough. But yeah, that's something else. And then there's this other substance called yopo, which is, as far as we know, like one of the most ancient psychedelics, and it comes from the sabile seed, which grows all over South America, but a lot of people don't know how to use it. But it's administered a lot like rapé, and it's just this powdered. It's pretty much it's both forms of DMT, has bufotenine in it, and it's blown up your nose. And this stuff is like, dude, it's a lot of people don't like it because you spend like 20-30 minutes just puking your brains out. But that for me was like the opener of everything. That was so wild. That stuff is it's scary.
Dude, what about people microdosing with things like LSD or psilocybin? Have you ever?
Yeah. I've experimented with microdosing. Mushrooms are tough for me, honestly. They tend to exacerbate my anxiety. So I don't have that experience with microdosing. It doesn't seem to help me the way I've heard other people talk about it.
Yeah. Did you have a different experience, Jay?
Yeah, I found it really helpful. And I can't speak to any of the scientific stuff, but for me, it was just like...
Yeah, none of us are doctors. We're just talking here. Preface, we're just like four fucking dudes trying not to shit ourselves over here.
or vomit, for that matter.
Yeah. I have the hiccups. No, I don't have the hiccups right now.
The Zin did make me have to shit. I do have to shit now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't get that.
It's appropriate for
but
this
Jay,
conversation.
you had a different experience.
Yeah, calming and like noise gating, like a low level focus when I took it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never had beneficial experiences from microdosing.
And Jay, you're talking about microdosing.
Psilocybin, it was stacked with cordyceps and lion's mane.
Oh, that's cool. So it was like, for a while, actually, I was using the Paul Stamets protocol. Are you familiar with that? Mm-hmm. Mixing it with niacin? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really intense. And you guys are probably familiar with niacin with pre-workouts and stuff. But it's pretty much like now taking this microdose and then spreading it out further throughout your circulatory system. But I had some benefits with that. I would actually go back to trying that if I had the time. But yeah, I don't know. Microdosing was never really my thing, but I've heard it work for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But I think that goes back to the lesson of like, you can't really go off of what other people are telling you is going to work and isn't going to work. Right. Everybody's biology is different. Everybody's experience in life is different. Everybody's experience with different substances is going to be different.
That's like if the pharmaceutical industry gets a hold of this, it's like, are they going to synthesize these things and make it into pills? Or they...
Yeah. I mean, they tried to do that with THC for a while, where before it was legalized here, they were just extracting it and putting it in a pill. But I find with anything, if you go back to the pure substance, there's a reason why it has all these other different properties that are going to help balance out the experience.
Right.
And I think synthesizing things is usually not the way to go, which is why I don't like NN-DMT, because it's always going to be synthesized. That's always going to be extracted out of a plant. Mm-hmm. And it feels like you take the life out of it. It feels like you take the whole life. And the same thing with THC. If you just extract the THC and just smoke THC, it's not the full experience. There's other properties within that plant that are balancing out the experience. The extraction process is not usually the way to go.
Right. Yeah, it's like back to the energy drinks, like kids and the synthesized caffeine. It's like nobody should be putting 300 milligrams down their throat at once.
Jesus.
Right? Yeah, like a developing kid. That's the craziest change I've seen in terms of supplements and our industry in recent years. When I first got into it, you'd have to buy the
powder.
Like you had Paul's amino acids or...
Yeah, it was like my hydration.
Right,
drink,
but you'd have to scoop out the powder, you'd have to mix it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can look at our recycling can. It is Ghost, Bang, C4, right? And it's hard.
I'm guilty of those ghosts.
Yeah,
Not all of them.
I spoke on the podcast before because if I had it my way, every kid that walked in with one, I'd say, no way. Like, this is not good for you. You can't be doing it. This guy can't be that asshole adult either. I was like, oh, Mike won't let me have my energy drinks.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, you got to roll with it. And just like, hey, this probably isn't the best for you to be pumping down 300 milligrams.
You know what I've seen start to get more popular now, which is pretty interesting, is yerba mate tea. Like you're seeing NFL players, and it's funny that the traditional way to drink it is out of like bulbous glass, and it has a particular metal straw that helps strain out the particulates as you drink it. Mm-hmm. But it's cool to see them go back to the raw material because it has so many better properties of it. And I think that would be the thing to do, of just like, hey, instead of an energy drink, why not try something like back to the source?
Which is why I like these nootropic drinks, because I have it in a can. I have a drink, Alchemy. Not trying to plug, but it's like it's just way better than walking around with a 300 milligram Ghost or a Bang.
Listen, Ghost only 200, all right?
200. Sorry,
that's so much.
Sorry, Ghost. It's
still more than they should be having.
Still so much.
You know, we come from a society of like bursting with flavor. Like we're just overloading our senses.
Yeah, how much do we?
Crazy.
We like sugar too.
Yeah.
Or the fake sugar.
Yeah. What are your guys' stances on fake sugar?
Like artificial sweeteners, you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. My wife could speak to it better. She's a dietitian. I mean, I know there's definitely detriments to your health.
Yeah. There's got to be, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure there's some way that it sparks some sort of cravings for real sugar, and then you know whatever it is, like something.
Yeah. Well, what I know about it is like your body takes the sweetness in, right? Mm-hmm. It's still a particle that fits through the same receptors.
Like I know what gives us humans a big dopamine kick is you have like this 50-50 split of like high sugars, simple sugars, and fat, like ice cream, like candy, like treats, and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible once you start mixing sugars with fats. That's like the worst.
It's delicious, though.
But once you start receiving the sweetness, your body's ready for the calories. And when you don't get the calories, you start craving the calories. So taking in like fake sugars, you're going to start craving more food and eating more than you should be eating.
Right.
And overeating's obviously not the way to go. But
yeah, it's a whole nother rabbit hole we could.
I also like sweet things sometimes.
Me too.
And I can't do suger. I just can't do sugar.
You just don't feel good.
I have a lot of diabetes in my family, a lot of the diabetes, and I seem particularly sensitive to sugar.
Do you get blood work regularly or no?
I don't.
Neither do I. I would love to. What's interesting is we had on a doctor last year, Dr. Kim, who's in Saratoga, and he does stem cell treatments.
Oh, awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And that's something that has a lot of room to grow in our
Yeah,
country,
that's
because a lot of people will go to South America or Europe because there's less regulations, which has its risks, but I mean also its benefits if a treatment can be more effective.
Yeah.
But he said that we were talking about diets, and do you notice with patients with better diets, if you get better quality, like blood and fat and stem cells and things that are easier to inject, or you have better outcomes?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
And he said the person that he saw with, I don't know how he explained it, but it was just like the easiest, like blood and fat and stem cells to work with, and he had the best outcomes, was somebody that cold plunged every day.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Explain how that makes sense to you from a physiological standpoint.
It could come down to the brown fat. So if you're familiar with brown fat, your body, when it starts dealing with extreme temperatures, starts building brown fat instead of the regular white fat. Brown fat, it burns. It's a better energy source. So you actually you get more calories per cell of brown fat. And so by going into the cold plunge, your body starts producing brown fat instead of white fat. So I think that high quality fat is probably part of it, but it's also like for your hormones is incredible. And like I cold plunge for the physiological benefits of like inflammation. We know it takes down inflammation. We know this, but the hormonal benefits are far above and beyond anything for me, the benefits of cold plunging. And like that, it's a 250% boost for 7 hours of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, epinephrine.
Do you start your day with it every day?
I try to, man. It's so hard to get into it in the morning.
Yeah.
Like you wake up and it's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I don't want to do it.
Isn't that part of it though?
That is part of it.
Listen to me. I bought a fucking Peloton instead of doing the cold plunge.
Yeah,
so.
it's tough. I probably 5 days of the week I get into it first thing in the morning, but man, it is not easy. But
how long are you cold plunging for?
Yeah, do you do specific protocols?
When I started doing it, just like anything I do, I try to do everything to the max, so I had to pull back. I dropped in for 17 minutes once.
Holy dude. And how cold do you have it?
37 degrees. It's cold. But that's not the way to do it. You're actually getting some negative benefits by doing that. You're actually taxing your body too much. But yeah, I go 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week.
That makes it feel much more realistic to me. I'm like, I gotta sit there for like how long?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. When I'm like trying to do more and more every time, I get to a point where it's like I don't want to go in there for 10 minutes. That seems terrible. But if I tell myself like, hey man, it's just 3 minutes. 3 minutes, I just drop in there. I get out. If I want to, I can just get in the hot shower and like get it over with. But yeah, if you can have a sustainable practice in getting into the cold plunge instead of just making it this terrible thing every time you drop into it.
So you have brown fat. What are other physiological benefits?
So you have the 250% boost of those healthy hormones. Mm-hmm. It's also, do you guys listen to Andrew Huberman at all?
Oh yeah, great podcast.
Yeah, and he had this whole podcast on what was it? It was pretty much dealing with trauma. And so one of the best ways of healing trauma is purposely stepping into a stressful situation. Like I think it's because you're taking back the control, right? So if you are going into a chaotic simulated situation on your own decision and overriding that reptilian brain that's seeking comfort and refuge all the time, and overriding that with your prefrontal cortex going, no, I'm deciding to do this even though it's hard, that's healing trauma.
Right.
So that's a huge benefit of it.
I just think the hormonal benefit alone, the dopamine and the serotonin, if you can get your day going with that, like you're gonna feel so much better.
It feels so good. Your mind is so clear. Like,
Jay, have you ever done a cold plunge or no?
No, I'm so curious. Is this do you have to buy like a tub, or is this just a cold shower will do?
Well, Dustin, you did the coolest thing, which when I reached out to you when I saw that you did it, is you took a chest freezer.
Yeah. So cold showers help. Like, I actually find getting into the plunge is easier than the shower.
I feel like that would be easier because I'm just jumping in.
Is it because it's more balanced? Your whole body's just getting in.
Yeah,
right away?
I get in the shower. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and you got to choose which side you're torturing.
And you go to step in and you're like, it hits you first.
God, it's terrible. And I like to do it because it's harder sometimes. But man, you do get some benefits from the cold shower. But man, those benefits are nowhere near.
You probably have to just be in there longer because of that too.
Yeah, probably. But plus, it's just not going to get cold enough. And if you're from Texas like me in the summer, that water's coming out of tap at 88 degrees. So where's your cold shower now?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not happening.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's got so many benefits, and mostly for me, like the ability to deal with depression and anxiety, it's the best tool for depression and anxiety. There is no chemical, there's no substance that you can take that will do what the cold plunge will do. There's nothing that has the benefit of that.
Do you have to have it at a specific temperature, or do you just do it at 37?
They say under 50 you're good.
Okay.
Under 50 degrees.
If somebody were to first get started, they say, hey, Dustin, like, I want to get started with this. What's a time limit or a temperature? You would say, hey, this is a good starting place.
Start with cold showers.
Yeah.
And don't just pop it on cold and jump in there. Like, the way I learned to do it was just like, okay, I'll turn it a little bit colder, a little bit colder, and let your body get used to it as you move along. And eventually you can turn it all the way cold. But then, yeah, if you can find a place that has a cold plunge, go for it. That's great.
What about a cold plunge compared to something like cryotherapy?
So the conducting of heat and cold in water is going to be much higher than air, right? I've never done cryotherapy, but from what I hear, the benefits are nowhere near to actually getting into water because it's covering your whole body, and that cold is so much colder.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to be in there with the little mitts and everything, and it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And like you said, I set up my own tank. I bought a used chest freezer for $400, right? And I sealed it up. I sealed up all the edges with rubber cement, essentially. I found this thermometer that I could pop in it that keeps it at a certain temperature, turns the tank on and off to keep it at 37 degrees. And I was good to go. $500. And I've had it for 3 years. That's all I needed. And I've moved it 3 different places. I've had it the whole time. It's great.
Is it? All right. When I told Sam, hey, we're going to do this, she's like, is it plugged in? Is it plugged in? When you do it, you got to unplug it.
I unplug it.
You don't want to fucking die,
Please,
right?
Kids. Yeah. Please, kids, unplug.
Yeah, so let's get this out in the air. If somebody's like, I'm going to do it like Dustin. Yeah.
Unplug it, then get in.
Yes. Yeah.
And then when you get out, dry off before you plug it back in.
Yeah. I have a whole protocol where it's like before I even open it, I unplug it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody like dying.
No, me neither, but it's
probably a good idea.
Listen, risk versus reward, man.
Yeah, it's so easy. And I'll tell you, even though I have like the protocol to unplug it, even before I open it, every time I step in there, I'm like, did I unplug it? Oh yeah, I unplugged it. We're good.
It's like when I leave here sometimes, I'm like, did I lock the doors?
Yeah, that's good.
I've definitely been on Wood Road, turned around and been like, I don't know if I locked both doors.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah, and it sucks.
Dude, it's so weird being back here.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, dude, you spent so many years here. And
yeah.
You were employee number what at Death Wish?
6.
Fucking 6. I mean, they're fucking gigantic now. I don't even know. But dude, that's crazy.
That was nuts. That was a crazy time, man.
Yeah, crazy. You was 6 before the Super Bowl commercial?
When I came in, we were in the competition. So it was like my 3rd week that we learned that we had won the Super Bowl commercial.
That's what exploded Death Wish, right?
Yeah, man. It was crazy. It was crazy the whole time I was there. I mean, every time I came over here, I feel like I was fuming and freaking out because of just like, it was just chaos constantly.
Then you were there in the transition when it went from like a smaller company to becoming more corporate and bigger.
Yeah.
Was that hard for you?
Yeah, it was so hard, man. It was so hard because it was like, it was a family of outcasts when I came in, and we were
which is cool as shit. That's what I want to be around.
Yeah, and it was great. We go out and party together, and like, you know, we go to all these conventions, New York Comic-Con and stuff like that, and it was always just like this awesome time. But you know, as soon as we hired HR, that was like the end of everything. It was like, you can no longer take your employees to the strip club. I'm sorry.
You're like, but it's great bonding.
This constitutes a team building, okay?
It really is. It really is. And then like, dude, I still have the email somewhere where it's like, please don't say Hail Satan at the end of every meeting.
You're like, but that's great bonding.
But we have skulls on our logo.
So that's the thing that HR was saying to me. It doesn't fall in line with our company's what do I want to say perspective or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we post about Satan a lot. Like, I'm willing to stop, but
you're like, we have the Grim Reaper on our door.
The name is Death Wish.
Yeah, I know. Right?
I got flagged once on Facebook because I posted a picture of Paul at the desk here, and there's the Death Wish sticker. And the post got flagged for being like hate speech because it said death on it.
What?
And I was like, what the fuck, Facebook? Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, the whole idea of that company was just absolutely radical. Everybody told Mike Brown that, like, it's not going to work. You have skull and crossbones. Nobody's doing that. And then after he came out and had success, you saw every other coffee company coming out and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, a growing company, it's tough. It's like, the hard part is when you start, there's a beauty to not having defined roles and everybody's just fucking grinding and getting shit done. But as you grow, it's like only the nature of to continue growing where roles got to get more defined, and it's fucking hard.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I really don't know how you do it. You keep it small if you want, unless you want to make a bunch of money. Then you go corporate with it. And like, I don't blame Mike for doing that. It's really smart. He made a ton of money doing that. It's good on him, man. Really smart cat. Well, I learned a lot from him. Even the idea of breathing into the void came from my experience at Death Wish, taking an industry and finding something that nobody else is doing. You be first or you be the best, one or the other, or both. And if you're the first doing it the way you're doing it, you're going to be the best at doing it.
How did things change immediately post Super Bowl commercial? Like sales, like the logistics you're doing?
Yeah.
Had to.
I mean, I wasn't even doing logistics back then I didn't have a logistics or supply chain background when I started working there. I was just, funny story. So before I started working for Death Wish, I was living out in Colorado for a while, and I was working on a weed farm, and I got paid in weed, in marijuana. So when I came back home, allegedly, this is all allegedly, I started, like, I had a bunch of weed that I started selling, and I started making a ton of money, and I was like, this is probably going to be sketch unless I'm like working a job. So I started working Death Wish so people would just assume that I'm making a bunch of money working for this company.
No shit.
Yeah.
Allegedly, no shit.
Allegedly. All alleged. This has allegedly happened.
And it just got to a point where it blew up, and I started looking at things like nobody's counting anything. We're not ordering stuff until we run out. And, with lead times of like, oh, we run out of a bag, and it's not, we order it and we're not going to get it for 2 weeks. Well, we can't pack K-Cups for 2 weeks because nobody was counting this stuff and it's just running out. And so that's when I started like counting stuff and putting stuff on spreadsheets, and they're like, oh, you're the inventory guy. And then it turned into like, oh, you're a logistics guy. Oh, now you're the supply chain guy. It's like, I didn't have a background in this stuff. I was just like, nobody's counting this stuff. Somebody should count it. And I just got roped up into it.
Should probably keep track of our products.
Yeah. And it was wild. When that Super Bowl commercial hit, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. We had all these other companies doing some of the packing and roasting for us, all fell through.
They couldn't handle the volumes.
I don't know,
but
man.
whatever.
It was a mess. People stopped returning calls. It was just like I'm blown away that some of these companies can run the way that they run. It's just a mess out there, man.
Dude.
Excuse me.
Excuse you.
Yeah. Alchemy will do that to you.
Alchemy. It was the most delicious burp I've ever had.
Yeah, man, that's wild. Those days, dude. Those days were, crazy for you coming in here.
I was so out of my mind and it was like the best therapeutic thing, right? I'd come in here, I'd be so stressed out, like whatever was happening that day, and I could just lift, and that's all I needed to focus. It's meditation. You're focusing on one thing for an extended period of time, and all of a sudden everything else starts to slow down. And I would come in here, my mind would be in a million different places, and I could go, okay, let's just put the weights on and pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down.
You talk about the dopamine and serotonin from cold plunge. Think about it with exercise. Yeah. You're getting the same thing. Jay, I don't know when this was, last year maybe, like just a discussion with Alyssa. I don't know, she's younger than us, in her 20s.
Yeah,
her little
mid-20s.
sister. Yeah, and a lot of her friends were talking about mental health or, on SSRIs and medication, which like it's needed for some people, right? But I'm like, okay, how many of your friends are exercising every day, are finding hobbies that they really enjoy, are doing talk therapy, I guess it's like the quick fix thing, but it's like exercise is such a huge avenue in terms of your hormones. And it's like, you think about it, when I first got into the field, like all of us, Paul, you're just like a little meathead. You love to fucking lift weights. You like to fucking how you feel after you lift. Yeah. You're growing your muscles. It's feeding your ego. But then you realize at some point, like the mental health benefits are so much larger than the physical benefits.
It's huge. It's huge. I had a mentor that spoke a lot about like the pillars, the foundational parts of life, and movement, exercise, breathing, nutrition, sleep.
Even think about, like, we do a good warm up in here in the fitness sense. We're trying to teach people new movement patterns, but we want them to be open to learning from us. When you are being more aerobic and elevating your heart rate and challenging yourself on that front, you're releasing more what's called brain-derived neurotropic growth factor. Yeah. And that is going to put you in a state where you're going to be more relaxed and you're going to be more able to learn and take in new information.
Yeah.
So it's like in here from a movement pattern standpoint, like you're going to be more open to learning these new movements after we get you moving, get you a little bit more aerobic. Or think about kids in school.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to be hopefully in a better place to learn, post exercising.
There's so much benefit into stepping into challenging new things, right? And I feel like a lot of people, when they try something and it's difficult, it's like, I'll go back to the thing that's easy for me. But for me in my life, I've always been drawn to the thing that's like, this is hard.
Jiu-jitsu puts you in that right away, bro.
God.
We had one of our friends, Jordan's friends, Brandon, on a couple podcasts ago. It's this band from Albany, the Phoenix and the Raven, and they're just fucking great. But he talked about, right, he was never into athletics, kind of felt like an outcast, and low self-esteem, and then started doing jiu-jitsu. And he's like, it changed everything for me, self-confidence-wise, being able to, I don't know, we clipped it, I think, but just like challenging myself and having somebody there to be like, nah, man, like you can do this.
Yeah. And back to the cold plunge and tying this in with jiu-jitsu, tactical thinking during chaotic moments is one of the best things.
Elaborate on that, because that's great.
One of the best tools you can have in life. Because when all the shit goes down, you want to be the person who can think calmly, right? And that's another benefit of getting in the ice tank, because it is just chaos. Can you think clearly through that? And I see people now there's this exercise of reading books while you're in the ice tank, because it's this way of like trying to think clearly while all hell is breaking loose. And jiu-jitsu is that. There is a 200-pound man trying to strangle you. And if you're freaking out, you're going to get strangled. And you learn that tactical chess-like thinking through those moments when all hell breaks loose. There's really nothing better than that. You're more well-equipped for life than any other person when you get that ability.
Yeah, 100%. Even like, let's say if you're an athlete and that's how you're challenging your friend, but you develop those skills, and it's like now into the work world at Death Wish, running a small business, shit gets crazy. There's a million things going on. And yeah, the better you can just like step back, stay within yourself, make decisions within that environment.
I was making $10 million decisions every day, man. That is scary. Scary. Also thinking about who I was when I was making those decisions.
Allegedly.
Yeah, man. And it's stressful. It's really stressful. And yeah, having that ability and back to the breath. If you can then learn to slow your breathing down, calm yourself down, even though hell is breaking loose, and you're the calm, cool-headed person in the room, man, that's just going to give you such a leg up in life and society and in your career, everything, in relationships, everything. Like when you're in a fight with your partner and you get caught up in that chaos when all hell is breaking loose, you know it's not going to get better. It's only going to get better if you can take a breath, calm down, think about what's actually going on, not surface level stuff. Go beneath the surface. Like, where's this actually coming from? Then you can open up the conversation to a more like objective, clear thinking conversation.
Yeah. You know what I saw too on your Instagram? Where'd you get that traditional tattoo? Was that Thailand?
Yeah.
Dude.
That was a pretty interesting experience.
Was that painful?
It was terrible.
Was it like the stick and poke?
Uh-huh.
Oh, fuck that.
The video's cool as shit if anybody wants to look at, but dude.
So the whole experience was wild, and I was able to find this group that gives you a translator, brings you to, they're called Ajarns, and they're like the masters of tattooing, and it comes from, the tattoos are called sakyants, and it comes from the monks, and the monks learn how to do this. And you can go to a monk and get this sakyant, but they're using the same needle for everybody. They're dipping it in the same pot of ink, and they also can't touch women, which is like a whole thing. So some of the monks retire and become Ajarns, and this is who I went to. And this guy, he like tattoos all sorts of celebrities. He tattooed Steven Seagal and like all these other people. So I found this company to give me a translator and bring me to him. And you don't even pick the tattoo. You go there back to intention. You go there back with an intention. You tell him your intention, and he customizes a tattoo for your intention. It's supposed to give you this power of your intention tattooed on your body. And he designed it. I sat there. He had a person on each side of me. So I have it like on the back of my neck. And he had a person on each side of me stretching out my skin, like holding me down. I had to put my arms on the ground because they were stretching me out so hard. And just like a pool cue, just chop, 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 chop. And, you know, I have some tattoos. I think there's 24 hours on this arm alone. Mm-hmm. And this only took 15 minutes, but it was terrible. And he gives you a mantra to chant while you get it, Soto Ya, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, Sotoya, 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 Sotoya. And he just jams it in there. And it's funny. He had this like, I couldn't understand what he was speaking Thai, right? But he just had this like guru way of speaking, even in Thai. It's just the whole experience. It was a little funny, but I'm glad I did it. It was really cool.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy cool. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. That whole trip was wild. I was out in Southeast Asia for a whole month. It was really, really cool, from Vietnam to Cambodia, and then ended up in Thailand. But it was a wild trip. I never thought I would fall in love with Vietnam. I fell in love with Vietnam. Those people are crazy. They're awesome. Awesome people there, man.
Yeah, dude, that's sweet. What time is it?
1:52.
Fuck, man. This flew by.
Yeah, man. Time flies when you're having fun.
I wish we had another hour.
Yeah.
Jesus, man.
Could definitely go for another hour.
Fuck, crazy. But yeah, Dustin, I guess, like, what's your next step? What's your next stuff with, like, breathing into the void? And, yeah, anything you want to plug on that front?
So, man, my dream for breathing into the void right now, I'm incubating, and like what you guys are doing in here, you're building something, you look at it, make some changes, make it a little bit better as you progress. And so right now I'm in that phase with breathing into the void, progressing with the music, progressing with the whole experience and how it flows. And eventually when I get it to the place that I really want it and figure out how to market it correctly, I'm bringing it on the road. I'm going on tour with it. And so that's my end game of this, of like taking my experience as a touring musician and bringing that into Breathwork and bringing it on the road, going from like either retreat centers or different wellness retreats, which I've been getting into a lot more of. Like, it's become like a big thing, these like weekend wellness retreats, and it's an industry that's exploding. And so this is something that I want to hop into and start touring the world and bringing this theatrical breathwork experience on the road. And as far as plugging anything, yeah, everything's breathing into the void. My YouTube, my Instagram, my Facebook, even though Facebook shut me down.
Why'd they shut you down?
I think I got hacked.
Fuck.
Yeah, so I got to wait until they take me out of Facebook jail. But yeah, I have some guided breath work on YouTube. Just look up Breathing in the Void, Google Breathing in the Void. If you're in Austin, I don't know how many of your listeners come to Austin, but if they're in Austin, I do it once, twice a month now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all my plugs. Instagram, Breathing in the Void, everything.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah, man.
And it was just cool to talk, psychedelics with you, because I feel like you just see it more and more everywhere now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess people are more open to it, but it's still knowing like you need to have intention. This isn't like
it's not a magic pill, people. Please, like, be skeptical, but also be open-minded. Yeah.
Yeah, man, 100%. This was a blast. It's good to catch. It's good to catch up. Yeah, it's been.
This was awesome.
Yeah, it's been so long, and you were just. I mean, when this business was in its fucking most infant state, you were here rocking with us. So.
It looks good in here, by the way. I absolutely love what you've done with the place, and like seeing so many people in here. When I walked in, I was like, oh yeah, awesome, and y'all survived COVID.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing in New York I could like ramble on about. I mean, yeah, that opened up my mind, and just like how crazy politics are. Before I was just naive and just like, well, I just can live my life, and like people, nobody's gonna impact you, and you can just keep going and doing your thing. And then all of a sudden you realize like, oh, we have to shut down, and then that's scary as hell. And at first you just do it because you're like, okay, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then in New York was crazy because I did like the stage reopening. Yeah. And you're like, wait, they can open, I can't. And gyms just got pushed to the shitter at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And you saw a lot of gyms like rebelling against that. And like that was cool to see.
It was great to see. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think if it happened again, which hopefully it never does, nobody would sit there and shut down and just sit on their hands. You're like, this makes no sense. It's, yeah, New York was crazy with that. But we, yeah, we're able to get through. It was just at the perfect time. We were just small enough. Our expenses weren't big enough. If it happened now, it'd be a whole different thing.
Yeah, and to think about like, okay, what's the one thing that's going to help us from being sick?
The gym. And
the gym and breathing.
And breathing.
And okay,
and
so let's shut down the gyms and cover everybody's mouth. Probably not the best move. I don't want to get into it too much.
No, not the best move at all. You can look back and be like, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
It's like, like a mask will help me. And then you look back, you're like, dude, these fucking cloths over our face didn't do shit.
And it's like also cutting off our communication with everybody around us. Like so much of our communication with each other is facial expressions.
Yeah.
And like just covering that up and like separating us from each other.
Some people can cover their faces back up.
And just and just like, hey, you want to like, you want to be in a better spot to get through a sickness. Like, let's be in better shape.
Yeah. Oh, I will say I did like I would wear like the mask that didn't even work, but like the little neck gaiter things.
Yeah.
I think it was cool. I felt like a Mortal Kombat character walking around.
Yeah, I wear that in the winter or when I play like flag football and it's cold out. I definitely rock that and I feel like a ninja.
It's so
awesome.
cool. And then walking into a bank with a bandana around your face. How cool is that? So there's silver lining. There's silver lining,
sure. But yeah, open up my eyes to a lot of things, and a lot of I guess just how much people love power and want to control other people, and it's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, well, you survived. You made it. The gym looks great, nice and packed, and hopefully we don't have it happen again. But
let's fucking hope not. And I guess let's hope not. You're not in Japan, or you are in Japan if it happens again.
Dude, if I got stuck over there, I would have been okay with it. It was awesome.
Yeah, man. But hey, it's good to have you back.
It's good to be back. This was a fucking
blast. Nobody shit themselves. We did it. So. Boom, and I don't have the hiccups, so we're good.
Yeah, we got through it.
All right, man. Well, thanks, Dustin. We'll see everybody next time.
All right, cheers.
Peace.